The bell above the door chimed softly as Emma Rodriguez stepped into Garrison's gun shop, her hands trembling slightly as she pushed her reading glasses up the bridge of her nose. At 63, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and a cardigan buttoned against the autumn chill, she looked like someone's grandmother, which she was. But today, she was here for something she'd never imagined doing in her entire life. Behind the counter, Jake Garrison looked up from his inventory list. He'd owned this shop for 15 years, and he prided himself on reading customers. This woman didn't fit any of his usual categories. She wasn't a hunter, wasn't a collector, and didn't have the nervous energy of a first-time buyer seeking home protection. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked, his voice professionally neutral. Emma's voice came out smaller than she intended. "I need to learn how to shoot." She paused, her fingers clutching her purse strap. "I need to learn today?" Something in her tone made Jake set down his clipboard. "Are you in some kind of danger? Because if someone's threatening you, we should call the police first." "No, nothing like that." Emma took a breath, and Jake saw her gathering courage like someone preparing to jump into cold water. "My grandson, Michael, he's 17. Last week, his best friend brought a gun to school. Showed it off in the bathroom, treating it like a toy. Michael told a teacher, probably saved lives, but now the other kids are calling him a snitch. He's devastated. Says he wishes he'd never said anything." Jake nodded slowly, unsure where this was going. "I've been reading statistics all week," Emma continued, her voice growing stronger. "About accidental shootings, about children finding guns, about people who've never held a firearm suddenly having access to one. And I realized something. I've spent my whole life being afraid of guns, avoiding them, pretending they don't exist. But my grandson did the brave thing, and now he's being punished for it. He needs to know that courage matters, that doing the right thing isn't always easy or popular." She straightened her shoulders. "So I'm going to learn. I'm going to face my fear, understand what he was protecting his classmates from, and then I'm going to teach a gun safety course at his school. The principal already approved it if I get certified. I want those kids to understand that guns aren't toys or status symbols. They're serious responsibility, and ignorance gets people killed." Jake felt something shift in his chest. In 15 years, he'd sold thousands of firearms, taught hundreds of safety courses, but he'd never quite heard a story like this. "Ma'am, that certification process takes weeks, sometimes months." "Then I'll start today," Emma said firmly. "I have time. I'm retired." And Michael needs to see that standing up for what's right has meaning, that adults will back him up, even if it's hard. Jake found himself smiling. "Let me make some calls. I know the best instructors in the state." What happened over the next 4 weeks became legendary in their small Virginia town. Emma Rodriguez showed up at the range every single day. She learned to handle firearms with respect and precision. She studied ballistics, storage laws, and accident prevention. She interviewed trauma surgeons about gunshot wounds. She spoke with police officers about youth violence. She compiled statistics about safe storage preventing teenage suicides. She wasn't preparing to own a gun, she was preparing to teach truth. The afternoon she received her instructor certification, Jake was there, along with 3 other range officers who'd been moved by her dedication. But Emma had one more request. "I need to go to the school now," she said. "Michael's there. He doesn't know I've been doing this." Jake drove her in his truck, her new teaching materials in a folder on her lap. When they walked into the school gymnasium, 200 teenagers were waiting for a mandatory assembly. Michael among them, slumped in the bleachers looking miserable. Principal Davis introduced Emma, explaining that this gun safety course was now part of their curriculum. Inspired by a student's brave decision to report a dangerous situation, Emma stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone. 7 weeks ago, someone in this school made a choice that probably saved lives. He was called a snitch for it. He was bullied. He wondered if he'd done the right thing." She paused, finding Michael's shocked face in the crowd. "That person was my grandson, and I want him and all of you to know something. When we're confronted with hard choices, ignorance makes us cowards, but knowledge makes us brave." She held up a photograph of a smiling 12-year-old boy. "This is Marcus Chun. He died 3 years ago because his friend found his father's unsecured gun and didn't know basic safety. They were playing video games. The friends spent 2 years in juvenile detention. 2 families destroyed because no one taught these boys that real guns aren't toys. The gymnasium was completely silent now. Your classmate who reported that weapon wasn't a snitch. He was a guardian. And now all of you are going to learn why that matters. When Emma finished her first presentation an hour later, the applause started slowly, then built. Michael was crying, his friends around him quiet and thoughtful. 3 students approached her afterward to share their own stories of guns in homes, their own fears and questions. Jake stood at the back of the gymnasium, watching this silver-haired woman transform fear into education, shame into purpose. She hadn't bought a single gun that day she walked into his shop. Instead, she de-armed herself with something far more powerful. The courage to turn one teenager's moral stand into a movement that would protect countless others. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit what we don't know, then learn it anyway, not for ourselves but for those who need us to be strong.